Okay, change of location. We're in the kitchen. So we'll have a go at consumer and producer and community surplus and talk a bit about why those matter. So if you remember in the last one, we said, well, when we look at a demand line like that, there's quantity and there's price. We said demand shows how many units are bought at each price, but it also shows the marginal utility. It shows how much we're willing to pay. So let's suppose that the price was 10 quid. And let's suppose that 50 units are bought. Each of those first 50 units, we would have been willing to pay more than £10 for them. So if you take this one here, which is say unit number 20, that consumer would have been willing to pay £25 for that unit. But in fact, because the market price is £10, I've put in a supply curve there, but it's not important here. Because the market price is £10, that consumer got £15 of consumer surplus. They would have paid 25, they do pay 10. So consumer surplus, it's the difference between the price that you would have paid, so it's the difference between the price a consumer would have paid and the actual market price. So, each of the units, each of the units up to that point, gives consumer surplus. So that one there, say the 35th unit, we would have been willing to pay £15 for that one, so that one gives £5 of consumer surplus. And we can work out the entire amount of consumer surplus by saying, well, look, each of the units up to there is giving us consumer surplus, that one and that one and that one and that one and that one. Therefore, it's that triangle between the marginal utility or the demand line and the equilibrium price. Let's suppose that price up there, £40, that's the price at which no one would buy anything. So we can just work out consumer surplus as the area of that triangle. So it's simply, to work out the area of a triangle, we simply work out the area of that rectangle, so it's 30 times 50, which is 1500. And then we divide that by 2. Because the area of the rectangle is 1500, therefore the area of the triangle is half of that, which is £750 or £1 million or whatever, depending on the units. So consumers are getting value. All of the first 49 units are adding to our welfare. The 50th one's like, okay, fine. But each of the first up to 50 units, consumers are willing to pay more for them than they actually do pay, and therefore consumers are happy. But that's the nature of any transaction. Is that both parties, both the consumer and the producer, they have to be happy with it. And we can now look at it from the point of view of the producer. And we said, well, look, supply, we said, it shows how many units a firm is willing to sell, but also it shows the marginal cost. It shows the cost of producing each unit. So the firm won't sell unless the price is above cost for obvious reasons. So again, if we take our example and say, well, let's suppose price is £10, and let's suppose that's 50 units as well for convenience, each of those first 50 units, the marginal cost is below £10. So if we take that one there, the 15th unit, the marginal cost looks like it's about £4. Therefore, the producer has made a surplus of £6 on that unit. The 30th unit there, the extra cost of making it was £8, but they sell it for 10. Again, we'll assume that demand is there. So they make £2 of producer surplus. And in the same way, I should make that straight line, but in the same way as we can work out consumer surplus, we can also work out producer surplus. So if I make that a straight line, we'll call that 10 quid, call that 50 units, and make that intercept £2 there. Then again, we just do the same thing. We just do the same thing we did before. Producer surplus. Each of the units is adding value for the producer. So to work, all we do is we work out the area of that rectangle, which is 8 times 50. 8 times 50 is 400, and then we say, right, the triangle is half of that, so we divide by 2. So therefore, producer surplus in this case is £200. And what that means is that, kind of obviously, really, when you think about it, but if a unit is sold, both the buyer and the seller think that they're getting good value. because if they didn't, then they wouldn't bother to buy it in the first place. Now, if we combine these things, we say, well, look, there's demand and there's supply, and we said that that was the equilibrium price of 10, and that was the equilibrium quantity of 50. If we add those two things, we said that's marginal cost and that's marginal utility. If we add those two things together, then we have all of the benefit that was gained by both consumers and producers from making these units. So every unit, let's take that one, the 10th unit, its cost was that much, but it was valued by consumers at that much. That's a huge benefit to society. This unit here, the 20th, it cost that much of our scarce resources, our factors of production, but it was valued by consumers at that much. And this is the point. So these two things together, that's consumer surplus, and that's consumer surplus, that's producer surplus. Yeah, consumer and producer surplus, together they are community surplus. So community surplus, as I say, it's consumer plus producer surplus. I just realised I never defined producer surplus. Producer surplus, is the difference between the price received by a firm and marginal cost, or if you prefer, and the minimum price they're willing to accept, which is marginal cost. So community surplus is consumer plus producer surplus. But the important point about this, is that if we produce at equilibrium, community surplus is going to be maximised. And this is one of the reasons that markets are held to be, free markets are held to be, under the right circumstances, a good thing. So if that's marginal utility and that's marginal cost, then all of the units up to 50 or Q1, all of these units, they have more marginal utility than they cost. And so if we produce at that point, we've made all the units where the marginal utility, and marginal utility is the same as marginal private benefit. And that's marginal private cost. We've made all of the units where the marginal private benefit is greater than the marginal private cost. So as long as there are no externalities, welfare, social welfare will be maximised. And if we kind of say, well, okay, so why is producing supply equals demand a good thing? Let's suppose we didn't. Let's suppose for some reason the government said only 30 can be provided. Well, now what would happen is we get utility from the first and second and third and the fourth and fifth, all the way up to the 30th one. So we get that much community surplus, but we wouldn't get any of this here. We would have lost that. We would have failed to go all the way to the socially optimal point. Suppose, on the other hand, a government said, well, we're going to produce, you must produce 70, for some reason. Well, now we get all of the welfare up to the socially optimum level there, up to 50. But now the government will be forcing firms or society to produce units where the extra cost is above the extra benefit. And again, there would be a welfare loss. So, in theory, the free market maximises welfare by producing at the socially optimum level. Problems arise if the market doesn't take us to that level, or if there are external costs. And I'll resume with that the next time I make a video.